on July 4th with our big, bold politics, as usual, with Mr. Big Bold at the front of the pack. And I thought, let's stir it up a little. Be respectful, but stir it up a little, all right? So I did some research on this bill, and I thought that I would just put out some facts very agnostically. And then I have one thing from Facebook that I want to read that I am then going to personally editorialize. And then I would ask anybody and everybody who wants to jump in to do so. Let me go first. And when it's your turn, I just have one request, and that is just be respectful of others, because not everybody agrees, but that's actually a good thing, in my opinion. And if we can stay within the boundaries of, okay, I don't agree with you, but I don't think less of you because of it, that's a good thing. And one of my arguments is we oftentimes talk about, the founding fathers' intention. That's the way it was back then. They argued all the time. That's how they got stuff done. And I think we've kind of gotten away from that. So maybe we can tap on the door of that a little bit. Okay. So this is just stuff from the internet, and you can take it for what you want. I'm just going to read some line items here. And if you want to make notes, go ahead. Some of this you've probably already heard. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about the tax stuff first, because it was largely a tax bill. And then I'm going to touch a little bit on the social programs. Okay. So we'll start with the easy stuff first. No tax on tips up to $25,000. No tax on overtime up to $12,500. Okay. That demographically seems that it would affect primarily people in the lower end of the wage earning spectrum. I could be wrong about that. I don't have data to back it up, but I've been in society for 63 years, and I think that's a generally reasonable comment that that's not going to affect the 1%. It's going to affect the 90%. And that's good. It should, Okay, number 2, interest deduction up to $10,000 on cars final assembly in America between 2025 and 2028. And that deduction has what's called a phase out. And these are very common things that I think are very smart for tax policymakers to use phase-ins and phase-outs. These abrupt hard stops I don't think are the way to go. But this benefit phases out if you're an individual making over $100,000 in taxable income, and it phases out if you are married filing jointly with over $200,000 in taxable income. Okay, but if you're under those thresholds and you buy a car with final assembly in America, you get a tax goodie. Okay. Child care tax credit. I don't know that many of us are affected by that anymore, but it was raised from $1,000 to $2,000 in 2017, and it's going to get bumped to $2,200 and made permanent. Okay, so that affects you. That's great. Here's an interesting one that gets kicked around a lot: the SALT tax, the state and local tax deduction. So this is for state income tax. I don't know the final version, but hopefully for Washingtonians, it's for state sales tax as well. And then you have the property deductions and so forth. That's going to go from a limit of $10,000 up to $40,000. Okay, so that's quite an increase, and that really affects people that live in high state income tax states like Illinois, New York, California, places like that. And hopefully in Washington, Senator Murray and Senator Cantwell are lobbying for Washingtonians to be able to deduct sales tax, because that is the Washington version of a state income tax. Okay. There's something called a Section 199A credit. I'll say that again, a Section 199A. And I actually get this. One of my companies is a pass-through entity called a Subchapter S Corporation, and I can take an additional deduction of 20% of my earnings from that company as a deduction against my federal income tax. Okay. So I'm going to stop there for just a sec and just interject something about tax policy that I think all of us should remember. Tax policy is really designed as a form of carrots and sticks. Okay. When the government wants you to do something, they give you a tax incentive. They don't want you to do something, They give you a tax penalty. So this 199A thing was put into the tax code to incentivize creation and sustenance of small businesses, which some politicians argue are the economic machine of America. Okay, so that's why that's there. It was put in during the first Trump admin, whether you agree with it or not, and it's still there. And I get a benefit from it, so I like it. Okay, some general talking points. The bill reduces support for solar and wind, favors fossil fuel productions, and not surprisingly, allocates $150 billion, which is a lot of money, for immigration, enforcement, and defense. Okay, so that's kind of just the checkbox, line by line tax stuff that I know of so far. There's some more stuff. There's stuff that incentivizes businesses for depreciation. That's a pretty big one. You don't have to spread out over time. You can take it all in the year of acquisition. So if that is tax advantageous to you, instead of taking depreciation typically over a 5-year life for personal property, then that could be really helpful. Okay, some of the social things. I got a letter last night from the Social Security Administration, and it said the following. The bill ensures that nearly 90% of Social Security beneficiaries will no longer pay federal income tax on their benefits, providing meaningful and immediate relief to seniors who spend a lifetime contributing to the nation's economy. This is a historic step forward for America's seniors, said Social Security Commissioner Frank Bizignano, I guess his name. So as a small affinity group, because this is all about, does your little group get a benefit or a takeaway? Social Security says, we like this, okay? Because the standard deduction is now increased for seniors by $6,000, okay? Which means that's effectively a deduction that's no longer subject to federal income tax, okay? All right, let's finish up with the big monster in the room, Medicaid. Okay. Now, I've read bits and pieces of the bill. I've listened to both sides. I'll maybe comment on my comments on the both sides in just a second, but let me just be agnostic here and call balls and strikes. I've been around Medicaid a little bit with my former in-laws. So as a citizen among us, I am a believer that those of us who are able to should participate in providing a reasonable safety net for those who are not able to take care of themselves. I am totally down with that, and here's the problem. The problem is, how big is the net? The problem is, who's gaming the system? The problem is, who's ripping us off? Those are all the problems, which are administrative problems. They're not necessarily policy problems. Because remember, what happens with these bills is that they're passed, then they have to be administered. Okay? It's no different than the legislature passing agency law in Olympia and the Department of Licensing then needing to implement enforcement. It's the same stuff here, okay? So if you haven't been around this, here's a couple of little talking points. First of all, Medicaid it's sort of a federal guarantee program. It's actually administered by the states, okay? And until this bill passed, only one of the 50 states, only one, the Peachtree State, Georgia, actually had a work requirement to be eligible to receive Medicaid. So the new big beautiful bill basically says this: if you are between the ages of 19 and 64, and if you are physically able to work, you have to spend at least 20 hours a week looking for a job, going to school for a trade, or volunteering in some way in your community to be eligible to receive Medicaid benefits. That's what it says. So if you are a single parent caring for small children, if you are the small child and the family meets the income threshold, which is 138% below the poverty level in the county where you're located, your benefits don't go away. Okay? I'm not being partisan here. I'm calling balls and strikes. And you can look this up and tell me I'm wrong, but I've looked it up and I've spent a fair amount of time researching this because it's such a hot political topic right now. We'll get to that in just a minute. And the last thing I'll say is this: not surprisingly, on this round of legislation, not a single Democrat voted for it. It was only Republicans. And when Joe Biden was president and did the Inflation Reduction Act, not a single Republican voted for it. Okay? So there you go. Partisanship in America. Okay. End of my sermon about the talking points of said big, beautiful bill. Okay? I have a couple other things, so I'm going to take a break here. Christine, would you like to share? Do you have, and we know that you come from a redder part of our great state, and that's fine. So what do you got? What do you think?
So I have a couple of opinions because my son started working with the Corps of Engineers, which is very political, and they've lost a lot of people in their IT department because of some of the cuts and things that have happened. And so,
Is that
uh,
the Doge stuff?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So with the big beautiful bill, I think everybody should have to work if you're on welfare, if you are physically able to do so. If you, I agree with you 100%. People who need help deserve help. So that's definitely, I'm right there with you. If you need help, but it's the girls that are having 3 and 4 babies that are getting on these systems and telling other friends of mine, why aren't you having kids? You can get so much more money. The I think you should have to volunteer or do some kind of activity. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm all for the tips. I was a waitress. I was taxed on my tips. I'm all for that. No tax on tips because it does affect the lower income people. And I'm kind of loving it. However, I will make the point. Like you just said, none of the Democrats voted for this. None of the Republicans voted for the Inflation Reduction Act. That means that there is something wrong. Because if it made total sense to everybody, you would at least have some bipartisan. Because I'm sorry, everybody on the Democrat side and everybody on the Republican side are not so far left or right. There are a lot of people that can come together and agree on things. And for nobody to come together and agree on anything on either party on these votes, then there's obviously it's going too far somewhere for common sense people to agree.
And there were three Republicans who didn't vote. I specifically omitted any kind of quantification of the increase of the debt. The numbers are all over the place, and people look to the CBO to see how they score it. But Trump said something very different. He said, what CBO is leaving out is the money we're collecting from tariffs. So, in a way, Trump is using, and let's just call it what it is, it's pulling money from the citizens out of the economy. It is a form of tax to be able to pay for increased spending. And I don't know about paying down debt. And it's no big secret that now the bromance with Trump and Elon Musk is dead because Elon's like, well, what the hell, man? And you look at Musk, that guy lost a lot of money. I think because he did what he did, whether it was right or not is subject to debate. But then Trump turns around and goes, "Oh yeah, now we're just going to jack up spending." I thought that was a piece of hypocrisy, a bit. All right, Michael Coe, what do you got?
More than anything else, it worries me that our debt and deficit have increased by a big number, whatever they finally decide it is. It's a big number and it's not going the direction for the future, which is down. At least some. Make it go down, not up. And I don't see it. I hear some things that goes, oh, with all these you know, other taxes or the new industries that will come out of this that perhaps, we'll have economy will just rocket up there and it won't make it will pay it down. I don't see it. I don't see it happening anytime soon. It's like make it happen first, not
Yeah.
not not promise it's something that might happen.
Well, and you guys know me, I'm very much a debt hawk. I've been talking about this for over 25 years. And I'm often befuddled how little these politician leader people know about even basic economics. You know, if you just go to the most simple thing, income and expenses, expenses are always known. It's the income that's the unknown. So what gives, you know? Okay, Jacques, what do you have to say about all this?
Um, Joe, I guess I'm a little worried about who gets to decide who needs to work or volunteer or whatever. Um, there's a lot of people in this area, in this county, that are on Medicaid, and I'm sure there are probably that percentage of them who scam the system. But um, I guess I'm just a little worried that my 62-year-old widowed neighbor down the street is going to be told that she has to start hashing or what. And there's no jobs here. So I'm not, I just don't know how people in Shoshone County um, are going to meet this requirement in a lot of ways. And I'm scared about who gets to decide who has to who has to go out and try to do this.
Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. This was another topic that I wanted to bring up, and I probably still will. I'm going to bring it up in a different way. But let me ask you, just as a citizen, why are you afraid? Why have you drawn the conclusion or have the suspicion or the concern that that will happen to your neighbor?
Because I see I, I think I see a trend, Joe, in this country toward the haves and people in people. I mean, Idaho is a very very conservative state, and uh, there's going to be a lot of. I think there's going to be a certain percentage of government employees who are going to get a little bit of power through this bill, and they're going to try to use it as a way to show their loyalty to the dominant political party in this state and enforce it fairly harshly.
Okay. So let me summarize. Tell me if I'm wrong. You believe that, in a simple way, it's a dividing line between haves and have-nots, and you're concerned that. I mean, I used to live in Idaho. Let's just call it what it is. It's predominantly a Republican state and conservative. Your concern is that the administration of these things will be very bright line and that people will get cut off who, in your opinion, don't think should be cut off. Is that right?
That's true.
Okay. All right. What do you think about this from the great state of Southern Oregon?
Well, we're the poor sister of Oregon down here, and like Jack, we have a lot of people on Medicaid, but I'm still an active realtor, and what I see in my grocery store in my small town is a lot of young people who have these plastic cards that they're buying groceries and getting all kinds of benefits from. I'm not a Medicaid receiver, so I don't know exactly, but they they can just check a bunch of boxes on an internet interview. They can, everything's done on the internet now. My clients who I'm buying and selling property for, they just go through and click stuff. They don't understand what they're signing and clicking. And I think that has kind of affected Medicaid recipients because there's a lot of people that may not even be eligible that are getting benefits down here. And I see it. I see it. they're young and able. They're not 62 years old, Jack. They're 30 and 40 and 50-year-olds that I think, like Christine said, they should be in the workforce or they should be volunteering somewhere, picking up trash, whatever. Just get them off of their butts and off of their uh, iPads.
Here is sort of a hidden, unintended consequence of what we're talking about in the macro. Okay. And I'm going to go back to what Christine said about the young women chatting amongst themselves. Oh, you should have another baby because you get money. That's a real conversation that I've heard more than once. She's not making that up. Okay. And I'm not saying it's, everywhere, but it is. Okay. Here's what I think is the problem. The problem is generational. The problem is you have people, for example, I'll just draw a broad brush here, who grow up in a welfare home and then they believe, oh, well, this is how I conduct my life. And so they become of childbearing and adult age, and they just become a lather, rinse, repeat of the way they were raised. Okay. And this is a real legit phenomenon that I think is something we need to be concerned about. And here's the backdrop. We're broke. Okay. I mean, people don't get this thing called the debt. We are broke as a country. The only reason we survive is because of our debtors and the extraordinarily codependent relationships that we have with other creditors around the world, the big one being China. Okay? But we are broke. Our money isn't worth shit. Okay? So we have to be mindful of that as well. And so they're trying to balance this. And I'll just wrap up here, and then Jacques, then you go, and then I'll hear from you, Kevin. But I think most of us would agree, I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning, that a social safety net is okay. Like, I'm good with that. I'm not good with people gaming it. I'm not good with the 30, 40, 50-year-olds who can but don't. I'm not good with young women saying, oh, if I just get pregnant enough times, I'll never have to work again. I'm not good with that. I think most of us would generally agree with that sentiment, generally. Jacques, what else?
I was just going to say, I admittedly I'm 76. I don't have a whole lot of exposure to the ones that the demographic that Dee talked about. I'm not out. I've retired. I'm not out working with people. So I don't see that demographic. So I've not experienced it. I'm on the other end. I'm on the 65, 68, 62 and up kind of people. And I'm seeing a lot of them hurt. And I think this legislation is going to make their hurt in a lot of ways, especially with Medicaid. It's going to make them hurt even more.
Okay. Fair enough. Kevin, what do you think?
I think this is just the first step toward needed accountability. I mean, they can handle it on a local level, but as long as we have these policies in place that we convert these, layabout people that are just sucking up resources, have them contribute in some way, I think that can only be a positive.
Time, young people would move to find work, right? I mean, what happened to that? Instead of staying in your small town where there's absolutely nothing. I mean, I don't know.
They're staying on your parents' couch.
Well, there is that.
Well,
too.
I mean, that's up to the parents, but yeah.
I've mentioned this before, so I'll just give it a quick honorable mention. Dee's not wrong about what she said. There's a phenomenon right now, and I'm going to focus on young men because it's fairly widely known. There's young men. I mean, I'm at the beach staying with a friend of mine, and there's another guy there who's about my age. He has a son who's 26. He doesn't do anything. And this is not uncommon. There's a lot of 20-something men who are not doing anything in the world, which to me is just like, are you what? I mean, I couldn't do enough when I was that age. So, and I don't know what has caused this. with young men. And it's not like 90% of the population, but it is big enough that demographers are noticing it. It is big enough that it is a societal problem as well. And this feeds into what I call the future consciousness, the generational problem. I'm going to be political for a second, okay? And I'm going to read something that was posted by my governor yesterday on Facebook. Now, I'm not a big Facebook person. Okay, I'm just not. When Facebook came out and my ex-wife was spending literally 6 to 8 hours a day sucked into the thing, I was like, oh no. And then when every person I hadn't seen since high school, 30 years later want to be my best friend, I thought, why? So I just kind of shut all that stuff off. But since we're doing some advertising on Facebook, I probably better plug into this thing. So this is what my governor wrote yesterday. The mega Congress just passed devastating cuts that will take Medicaid away from 250,000 Washingtonians. Washington Reps Baumgartner and Newhouse voted in favor of the cruel cuts, which will disproportionately affect their constituents in eastern and central Washington. Washington is among the states hardest hit. Donald Trump's morally bankrupt policy will cause our vulnerable Washingtonians to lose their health care coverage and likely force hospital closures across the state, all to pay for tax breaks for the richest Americans. Okay. Now that comes from my governor, right? So I will comment first. Anybody else in Washington is free to comment as well. Let me just do it this way. Read between the lines, Bob. Okay. Number one, why are you even doing this? Number two, what is the result? You're just going to get people upset. And number three, you have no facts to base what you're saying at all. You have no facts. Okay? And so in the aggregate, and this is why I asked you, Jacques, why you felt the way that you do. We live in a world where people who get the privilege of being in front of others, like me, you should show up and know what the fuck you're talking about. Okay? People may not agree with you, and that's cool. But to just get up and lie and sensationalize and exaggerate, and look, Trump does it. Okay, let's just call it what it is. Not okay. Not okay just to scare people into believing what you want them to believe, especially when you are the leader of a state, and a state that is very diverse. It really got under my skin a lot. Okay, you can believe whatever you want offline, Joe. But don't use social media to promote what. Anyway, you get it. Go ahead, Christina.
He's worse than Inslee. I mean, his agendas and he is by far. So what affected me yesterday was this new the rent increase fix that they passed a few months ago. So I have a 55 and over senior park that I have a listing in, a manufactured home park. And lot rent was already high for Tri-Cities, $900 a month. That's one of the highest in Tri-Cities.
That's pretty high.
But all new residents, because of the new rate fix or rent fix, they get to pay $900 until January, and then it goes up to $1,100 for a senior citizen on a fixed income in a manufactured home park. So because of this cap or this rent fix, manufactured home parks can only increase rent 5% every year. And so the residents that are still there, they're fine. But any new resident coming in, $1,100 a month. And the buyers did not walk, which I was really happy by. But the sellers just made $15,000 less because of it. Because they're like, well, if we're going to be paying $2,400 a year more, we're going to live here for quite a few years, blah, blah, blah. And they said, this is the most we'll pay for it. So, I mean, Washington State is such a backwards, nothing is common sense here. Nothing.
Well, it's a question of how much government is enough. And people are free to disagree about that. Okay, that's the whole Democrat way. My problem with Ferguson's post was it's just advertising and it's scare tactics.
Yep.
That's my problem with
we have
it.
the same problem in Oregon with our governor.
Yeah. It's not Kate Brown anymore, is it? You have a different governor, right?
No, it's Kotex. Oh, Kotek. Excuse me.
Okay. Gotcha. Mercedes, do you have any comment on our governor's comment? Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know. I don't think he's as bad as Inslee. I think that it's a mistake to try to compensate for all federal funding that's going away, because we can't afford that here either. So I don't know. I feel like they're just setting the stage to look for some new taxes, and I'm kind of disappointed. But what do you do? I mean, if they ever would put a Republican governor forward that was a better choice than a kumquat, I would vote for them. So
Quat. I would have never used that as a comparison. That's magnificent.
I like Tiffany Smiley. What was
Oh,
wrong
God.
with her?
Oh God.
Really?
Yeah, really. I mean, yeah,
Oh.
hauling out her blind husband and stuff. It just felt so exploitive to me before she even got into office. I mean, yeah.
Well, this is where, reasonable people can disagree, and that's fine.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
I'm just arguing that if you're going to get the privilege of the podium, at least bring reality and try to be somewhat agnostic and not just blather the usual talking points. That's what bothered me about his post. So, but, that's not going to change, and it is what it is. Okay? All right, so let me wrap up with this. America is not easy, never has been, and it's not right now. And today's July 4th. I would offer you this. By August 4th, nobody's going to be talking about the big, beautiful bill anymore because we'll be on to the next drama, crisis, geopolitical, whatever. Okay? That's just the news cycle and the world that we live in. What I think that we should do and what I try to bring to this is let's make sure that we're understanding the way things really are instead of the way that pundits want us to believe that we are. And I think this is a very critical moment right now that we need to be very mindful of that. I do. And look, if you've got a bunch of people out there who believe the sky is falling, that's usually a pretty good time to start buying the sky. Well, I'm down at the beach and I have my drone, so we'll see if next week I still have a drone.